Welcome back to the Random Radio Show, featuring me, your random host. Now it's time for my favorite part of the show, Q&A, where people phone in and ask random questions live. We'll start with caller number 1. What is your question?
Who are the famous five? I heard about them in history class. They seem just like a group of women that went to court. What's so special about that? Every female celebrity has done that at one point in their lives, so how are they different? It's like five Lindsay Lohans got together and formed a band.
What? Lindsay Lohan is nothing compared to the famous five. They were brave enough to stand up for what they believed and their rights, even though everyone was against them.
So who were they exactly?
They were a group of women who were fed up that they were not considered persons by the British North American Act, known today as the Canadian Constitution. They decided to create a petition to ask the Supreme Court if women were people, which was met with a negative response. Fortunately for them, the British Privy Court overturned this judgment and women were allowed to be appointed to Senate. This act was very monumental in the fight for women's rights. The group consisted of 5 women: Henrietta Muir Edwards, Louise McKinney, Nellie McClung, Irene Parlby, and their leader, Emily Murphy.
I remember hearing about Henrietta Edwards in history class, although I was mostly asleep, since it was history class.
Shame on you for sleeping during history class.
Are you here to lecture me on my bad manners, or are you here to educate me?
Oh, right. Let me start with Henrietta Edwards, the one who the case was named after. She was born in 1848 and was the oldest of the famous five. She advocated for women's rights from as early as the age of 26. Along with this case, she was involved in other feminist causes such as the National Council of Women and the Victorian Order of Nurses.
Alright, what about the rest of them?
I was getting there. Louise McKinney was born in 1968. She was the first woman to win a seat in the Alberta Legislative Assembly and the first woman in the Legislative Assembly of a British nation. She served from 1917 to 1921 until she was defeated by a farmer. Along with fighting for the right to be in Senate, she was a strong believer in temperance, the limiting of alcohol, as she thought it was evil.
Keep going, buddy. You're doing a good job.
Let me finish, Kanye. Nellie McClung was born in 1873. She was an accomplished author and a strong believer in women's rights and in temperance. She has written several books, including Sowing the Seeds, which became a national bestseller. She was notable for her sense of humor and great speaking skills overall.
Are you going to finish anytime now?
Are you going to stop interrupting? Because, well, quite frankly, this is my show, for crying out loud. Honestly, I call the shots, not you, so shut it. Anyway, Irene Parlby was born in 1868. She was a lifelong advocate for women and children. She helped to found the first women's local of the United Farmers of Alberta. She also was the first woman cabinet minister to Alberta and the last surviving member of the famous five.
I think you're forgetting someone.
Emily Murphy? No, I was getting there. She was born in 1868 and was leader of the famous five. She was against drugs because she believed that drug addictions could ruin society. She was also notable for her book, The Black Candle, which discusses how drugs can ruin lives. She also persuaded the government of Alberta to pass the Dower Act, which meant that women weren't screwed completely if their men left them. And they disconnected. Stay tuned for commercials and the orbital chicken death ray coming up next.